In 2010, a nuclear facility buried inside Iran, guarded by soldiers, checkpoints, and total secrecy, began quietly falling apart. Centrifuges spinning at supersonic speed started to fail, not all at once, but one by one, as if something inside the machines had simply decided to break. No explosion, no gunfire, no warning. By the time Iranian engineers understood what was happening, nearly a fifth of their uranium centrifuges were already destroyed, and the enemy responsible had never set foot inside the building. The weapon wasn't a bomb. It was code. And behind that code stood a unit so secretive that for decades the Israeli government wouldn't even confirm its name existed. This is the story of Unit 8200, the teenage hackers, codebreakers, and engineers who built one of the most feared cyber armies on Earth.
Unit 8200's story begins before Israel itself had a flag. In 1948, as the newborn state fought for its survival in the War of Independence, small teams of radio operators and codebreakers were already at work, listening to enemy transmissions, cracking whatever codes they could, feeding scraps of intelligence to commanders who had almost nothing else to rely on. By 1952, these scattered teams were consolidated into a single formation. It was given a number, not a name, drawn from an old military postal code. And from that point forward, it would simply be known as Unit 8200. 2 years later, it relocated to Glilo, a quiet stretch of land north of Tel Aviv that still houses its headquarters today. From the outside, it looks unremarkable. Low buildings, antennas, fences. But for decades, what happened inside those walls stayed hidden, even from most of Israel's own government. The unit grew slowly, then rapidly, through every war Israel fought. The Six-Day War, the War of Attrition, and then, in 1973, its greatest early failure. Despite intercepting warning signals ahead of the Yom Kippur War, Israeli intelligence misread the threat, and the country was caught almost fatally off guard. It was a national trauma, and it forced Unit 8200 to rebuild itself from the ground up into something far more disciplined, far more paranoid, and far more effective.
What makes Unit 8200, unlike almost any other intelligence organization on the planet, is who it recruits. Not veteran officers, not seasoned spies. 18-year-olds. Every year, Israeli high school students are quietly funneled through psychometric testing, coding challenges, and rounds of interviews that feel less like a military draft and more like a hiring spree for the world's most secretive tech company. The sharpest of them, the ones who can find a pattern in noise, break an encryption before breakfast, write working exploits before they're legally allowed to drink, are pulled into 8200's training pipeline. From there, they enter a world built entirely on secrecy. They can't tell their parents exactly what they do. They can't tell their friends. Years later, when they leave the military and apply for jobs, most of them can only say they served, quote, in intelligence, and nothing more. It's a culture built on brilliance, discipline, and silence. And it produces some of the most capable cyber operators on Earth before most of them have finished growing up. By the time these recruits finish training, Unit 8200 has already become something far bigger than a signals unit. Today, it's the single largest unit in the entire Israeli military, with estimates ranging from 5,000 to well over 10,000 personnel, a scale that dwarfs almost every other branch of Israel's armed forces. It's often described as Israel's version of America's NSA or Britain's GCHQ, a machine built to intercept, decode, and exploit communications on a global scale. From listening posts scattered across the Negev desert, the unit monitors radio, satellite, fiber optic, and cellular traffic stretching from North Africa to Central Asia.
It isn't passive. It hunts, tracking Iran's nuclear and missile programs, mapping the networks of Hezbollah and Hamas, and feeding Israel's leadership the intelligence it needs to strike first before an enemy ever gets the chance.
But the operation that turned Unit 8200 from a quiet legend into a global cyber power began sometime in the mid-2000s, deep inside Iran's Natanz nuclear facility. Iran was racing to enrich uranium, running thousands of centrifuges around the clock, spinning at speeds that could tear themselves apart if even slightly disrupted. And then, without warning, they started failing. A piece of malicious code, later named Stuxnet, had slipped into the facility's industrial control systems, most likely carried in on an infected USB drive by an engineer who had no idea what he was holding. Stuxnet didn't crash the system. It didn't trigger a single alarm. It was patient. It quietly sped the centrifuges up, then slowed them down, stressing the machinery just enough to destroy it from the inside, all while feeding false, normal-looking readings back to the control room, so the operators had no idea anything was wrong. By the time Iranian scientists understood what was happening, roughly a fifth of their centrifuges were already gone. Stuxnet is widely believed to be a joint operation between Israel and the United States, with Unit 8200 at the center of its development. When cybersecurity researchers finally uncovered it in 2010, the world realized something had changed forever. This was the first known cyberweapon in history to cause real, physical destruction. A keyboard had just done what, until then, only a fighter jet or a missile could do. Stuxnet was only the beginning. In the years that followed, Unit 8200's fingerprints were linked, through leaks, reporting, and quiet admissions, to operation after operation. In 2017, Lebanon's state telecom provider was reportedly hit by a sophisticated cyber attack tied to the unit. In 2018, intelligence credited to 8200 reportedly helped stop a bomb plot targeting a passenger flight bound from Australia to the United Arab Emirates. A reminder that behind the secrecy, this unit's work has also meant lives saved, not just systems destroyed. And in wartime, 8200 doesn't sit behind desks in Tel Aviv. Its personnel are folded directly into combat headquarters, locating tunnel networks, tracking enemy commanders, and disrupting rocket capabilities in real time. But the unit is not infallible. In October 2023, despite its vast surveillance reach, Israel was caught by surprise by a massive attack, an intelligence failure serious enough that it triggered an internal investigation inside 8200 itself, one many officials have called the most damaging failure in the unit's history.
Here's what makes Unit 8200 truly unlike any other military intelligence agency in the world. When its soldiers finish their service, most of them don't disappear into obscurity. They walk straight into the heart of the global tech industry. Veterans of the unit went on to co-found Checkpoint Software, one of the pioneers of the modern firewall. They built Palo Alto Networks, now one of the largest cybersecurity companies on the planet. They founded CyberArk. They founded Wiz. They've built Waze, the navigation app later bought by Google for over $1 billion. Today, close to 8,200 alumni work inside American tech giants alone: Microsoft, Google, Meta, NVIDIA, Apple, many in senior engineering and security leadership roles. In Silicon Valley, people simply call it the 8200 Mafia. Nowhere else on Earth does a single military unit function as a de facto founders' school for an entire global technology industry.
But Unit 8200's story isn't only one of triumph and innovation. For years, part of its mission has involved monitoring Palestinian communications, tracking phone calls, internet activity,
and movement across the West Bank and Gaza. In 2014, dozens of 8,200 reservists signed a public letter, refusing to continue serving in roles they said were being used to pressure and coerce Palestinian civilians for information, rather than for pure security purposes. It was a rare public crack in a culture built almost entirely on silence. Then came NSO Group, a private company founded by 8,200 alumni, whose Pegasus spyware could secretly turn a target's own phone into a listening device. Pegasus has been linked to the surveillance of journalists, human rights activists, and political figures in multiple countries, triggering international investigations and a diplomatic backlash that Israel's government has had to publicly navigate. And more recently, during the war in Gaza, reporting emerged on an AI-assisted targeting system, reportedly used to help generate lists of suspected militants for airstrikes. Israeli officials have insisted human oversight remains central to every targeting decision. Human rights researchers and independent journalists have raised serious concerns about the speed, scale, and accuracy of AI-assisted warfare, especially given the devastating civilian toll of the conflict. These aren't simple stories with simple answers. They sit at the center of one of the hardest ethical debates in modern warfare. How much power should a machine, or the people who built it, be allowed to hold over decisions of life and death?
Whatever side of that debate you land on, one thing is difficult to dispute. Unit 8200 has reshaped the modern battlefield. It proved that a line of code can be as devastating as a missile. It built a pipeline that sends teenage hackers straight into the heart of Silicon Valley. And it turned a small desert nation into one of the most consequential cyber powers on the planet, respected by allies, feared by adversaries, and scrutinized by anyone who cares about where the next war will actually be fought. Not in the sky, not on the ground, but in the silent space between two computers where Unit 8200 has been operating since 1952, and where, in one form or another, it almost certainly still is right now. Where every conflict has a cause, every border has a cost, and every war leaves something behind.